On Brexit,
Yeah.
you've just suffered the worst defeat in an election since 1935 for the Labour Party.
Yeah.
And many people in your party think that a big reason for that, or perhaps the biggest reason, is the position on Brexit. Now, of course, you, as Shadow Brexit Secretary, was the architect of that position. Do you take responsibility for it?
Well, I think we all take responsibility for that devastating election loss. Of course we do, because for millions of people who desperately needed change, we've put them in a position where they won't have that change. I went out with many teams in the election campaign, and the talk in the teams was always what's coming up on the doors, what are people saying? And there were a number of things. People brought up the leadership of the Labour Party, fairly or unfairly. They brought up Brexit in different ways. What was said in the Midlands was different to what was said here in Scotland. They brought up the fact they thought the manifesto was overloaded, and they didn't believe we could deliver it all. And in a number of places, they brought up anti-Semitism. So there were a number of reasons, and we need to address all of them. But we've also, I'm afraid, got to face up to the fact that we've lost 4 elections in a row. So we're not just analysing what's just happened last December. We are also saying what's been happening over a longer period. And whatever else you can challenge me on, Brexit wasn't the cause of 4 election losses for the Labour Party. So an honest assessment of the nature of the task ahead is needed.
You obviously travelled the country a lot during the election. I certainly did too. I spoke to a lot of voters. And Brexit, as you know, was brought up an awful lot.
Oh, I agree with that.
Particularly with Leave voters who thought that the policy for a second referendum was overturning their vote.
Well, it came up.
I mean, you were a big architect of that position.
It came up. Actually, that position was adopted firstly by the Shadow Cabinet and then by our party conference. I thought it was the right policy. I thought we should have gone on, by the way, and actually said which side we would be campaigning for if there was a referendum.
Do you still think...
I warned our party that if we looked indecisive, we wouldn't look like we were leading on this issue. But of course it came up. I think our biggest problem, in a sense, was that we didn't knock down that phrase, get Brexit done. I mean, we had a manifesto with lots and lots of policies in it. Boris Johnson had 3 words, and we didn't knock it down.
You said that you thought that was the right policy. Do you still think it was the right policy?
Oh, yes, of course, because what we were doing was we were fighting against a deal that we thought would be very damaging for our country. And it is important to remember that for month after month after month, and you will have seen this, I was standing there putting forward amendments to get a deal over the line. It was only when we were confronted with Theresa May's deal and then Boris Johnson's deal, which I believe will be damaging for the country, that we even entertained the question of putting it back for people to agree or not agree. So I don't know how many times I pushed an amendment for a customs union, and we got within 3 votes of it. Had that succeeded, we would have left with a deal. So we only moved on to the question of a second referendum to protect the country against a damaging Brexit.